Evening to our viewers. So today we're going to discuss on our next topic about about what?
It's
Apa?
actually a continuation of the last
Continuation lah kan. Okay.
discussion.
One more time.
Okay.
Evenings our viewers. So tonight we are going to continue our discussion from previous one, and here is my friend and I, me Yazid, Elisa, Faris, Ruzana, Alif, Wa, Iman and Harid. Okay, so I think that's enough for our introduction. We can begin with our first discussion.
All right. I think I will be beginning our discussion with explaining the shifting baseline as it is our first question of today. So shifting baseline. It refers to the change in environmental in an ecosystem which happens over time, gradually happens over time in a which is in a long period lah. The term baseline refers to a state of a system that includes a description where its current condition may be utilized for future comparison. So according to uh, a paper, a study by Hans, it is stated that there are two types of shifting baseline, which are first generational amnesia, and second is personal amnesia. So generational amnesia, they occurs when new generation, they are unaware of previous state of ecosystem and accept the current state as usual. For example, like let's say behind our backyard there used to be a forest, but then after we are born, the forest is like totally unexistent, and our mom never talks about it to us, so we don't know the existence of the forest behind our backyard. So that is generational amnesia. And for personal amnesia, it occurs when people forget how the situation used to be. For example, we can say that in our childhood, we forgot that the trees are actually much, what do you say? Much more than
Dense.
what we, much more than what we have right now, like that.
Denser.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So because the baseline changes very slowly, it is difficult for people to to perceive the changes. So it is also very difficult to convince people that the environment is changing, and because they can see it. So another like concern of this shifting baseline is because of there are little proof in the past scientific evidence to support that changing baseline occurs. So in our previous discussion, we have discussed about the changes over time in mangrove, right? Where we can
Yes.
see that it is gradually decreasing in number, right?
Yep.
So I think that this discussion we will be focusing more on the maybe the marine habitat that is found in the marine ecosystem that I think will cover.
One of the issue that we can relate to the shifting baseline is overfishing in mangrove ecosystem, which is it is dramatically and negatively affect the fish biomass and also the variation of the species. The overfishing activity have hurt the growth and the development of fishes, which lead to lower down the birth rate and resistance to stressor. Over time, the mortality rate of fish eventually exceed the birth rate of healthy fish. An example from a previous study regarding the population of salmon in Columbia River in Pacific Northwest have proved the significance of shifting baseline. So from the study in the 1930s, it showed that the number of salmon that inhabit the river increased twice than before. But the judgment needs to look in the bigger perspective. For the sake of sustaining the mangrove ecosystem, it is necessary to refer back to the original baseline and make plans to bring back the abundance of organism to its original state. It is important to highlight that even if only one species of fishes went extinct, it will result in unbalanced ecosystem. So that's my point.
Yep,
Thank you.
agree.
So are we going to proceed to the next question, or anyone want to add on question number 1?
I think I understand already.
Okay, so I think we can go to question number 2. So why is it important to have an accurate baseline for marine ecosystem? Okay, so first of all, we need to know that globally, anthropogenic activities such as overfishing, coastal development, and pollution will cause changes in marine ecosystem environment and communities, and also the functional role of the ecosystem. So, a baseline will provide us to evaluate the magnitude of change that caused by the human activities. So, the marine ecosystem baseline provide reference of the pristine or the normal environment in the past, which is where the anthropogenic activities doesn't occur yet in that time. So, this baseline will help us to understand how marine ecosystem looks like in its natural environment and how they function. So this baseline will become an indicator for ecosystem changes assessment and conservation effort, which means that the conservationists can look back to the baseline on how the pristine environment occurred in the past, so they can imitate how the environment and they could uh, do the process of mitigating the impact to become the how the past environment occur. So the conservation effort will have more guided goals towards achieving the original condition of the ecosystem. So that's what I understand on what is the importance of the ecosystem baseline
Okay,
for marine.
I think I want to add something. I think it's good that we know the examples of the importance of having an accurate baseline for marine ecosystem. So, for example, in marine ecosystem, so mangrove contribute to coastal protection from erosion and protect the environment from extreme weather changes. Besides, the mangrove also is important in maintaining water quality, trapping sediments and filtering pollutants originating from activities in surrounding areas. So this is basically the pristine conditions of mangrove ecosystem. So other than that, humans are also highly dependent on the products from the mangrove forest, such as timber resources and fishery resources. Because of the availability of these resources, we might also as well have exploited the resources from the ecosystem without even being aware of the consequences. Over exploiting the resources may lead to extinction of species. Therefore, to avoid this issue, the baseline will help in controlling the amount that we take from the mangrove ecosystem in a way that it can have time to replenish. So, following the baseline doesn't just maintain the balance of the ecosystem, but also provide us with much more sustainable resources and protect the coastline. So, other than that, degraded mangrove ecosystem can also be replenished
to its baseline through restoration efforts, such as replanting more mangrove trees. So replanting mangrove trees also should be taken seriously, because it may involve the communities to take part, which in return will also give the community a better understanding of the mangrove ecosystem, and raising awareness and also safeguarding the mangrove ecosystem. So I think from the example, it's important that we have an accurate baseline for the marine ecosystem. So that's all for me.
So we just proceed to the next question, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so basically for the next question is about how the ecosystem, it's about the mangrove ecosystem can recover from the natural disturbance. At the same time, the anthropogenic activity is still increasing. So for this question, Wong will tell his opinion about this question first.
Alright, thank you, man. So, in my opinion, the recovery of the ecosystem will be anthropogenic disturbance and increases according to the anthropogenic disturbance. So, anthropogenic disturbance is a term that is used by scientists in referring to environmental change caused by the people, either directly or indirectly. The topic of anthropogenic disturbance is wide. However, the significance of anthropogenic disturbance is in its effect on the environment. The effect of anthropogenic disturbance can be reversible or irreversible. So, when we talk about reversible recovery, it depends on the secondary succession, whereas from the disturbance, such as wildfires and other disturbance, which can certainly bring ruin to a landscape, the soil often retains a bank of seeds that can sprout shortly after the effect of the disturbance pass. So, the ecosystem within the landscape can recover through the secondary succession. If the anthropogenic disturbance increase during this process, the secondary succession will be slowed. According to Herald and Pipernet 2018, the affected ecosystem will be less to cope with anthropogenic disturbance during recovery period because they contain a lot of pioneer species. Thank you. Is there any addition to my opinion to this question?
So I would add something about this question. So for me, basically, the mangrove ecosystem cannot recover from the natural disturbance if the anthropogenic activity in the area. It's because I think the recovery process will depend on the intensity or magnitude of the disturbance is likely about, and it will take a long time to recover. So basically, if the example of the human activity that will permanently ruin the mangrove ecosystem are the coastal development or land reclamation for settlement. Is we call the permanent disturbance on the ecosystem. And just like the previous discussion that we talked about the succession stage of recovery, it can be the same here. It's about the major mechanism of the recovery in the ecosystem that previously was lack of life. I for sorry. So the example, sorry. Okay.
Bawa tenang.
It's okay, brother. It's okay.
The major mechanism of recovery in the ecosystem are the primary and the secondary succession. Firstly, we talk about the primary succession. It occur in the landscape that previously was lack of life, and the secondary succession begin in the environment that already possess a medium like a soil. So basically, the recovery process can be done in this area during the period of the anthropogenic activity was doing at the area. It's probably because the mangrove ecosystem will suffer from the water quality problem such as excess sediment and nutrient, littering, chemical contamination, and it will be more likely unsuitable to the community within the ecosystem. So I think That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Iman.
You are welcome.
So should we proceed to the next question, or anybody got some point on this question?
I
So
think
now,
both you and Iman have already covered 100% of the topic.
Fuh. Fuh.
mantap man.
Terhasul.
So
Apparently, L is having.
Yes, it.
Okay. There she is. Okay.
Do
Then
you
L
guys
will
have any
continue.
more addition for the third question? I mean, third and fourth question.
No,
Okay,
no, no, no.
so we proceed
Let's
to the last
proceed.
question. Yeah. So we proceed to the last question. So I'll start off the question by saying we all know that mangrove forests are very important ecosystem, which have a distinct diversity that promotes productivity as well as providing habitats for a lot of animals. So because of this, because of the services and goods that mangrove forest provides for human both in economics and environmental terms, it is important that we maintain their sustainability. So there is a paper that quoted that said about sustainability in mangrove forests are needed to benefit from the ecological, economical, and also the social aspect, so that we can achieve the optimum forest products and services for the present generation, but without destroying that same forest for the future generations. So I think one of the ways is by I think one of the most important thing is policy and legislation, because that's where it all root from. I think it's not I think we know that mangroves are a very fragile ecosystem because it fluctuates as a result of slight changes in the natural environment. So I think the government needs to revise policies from time to time to flow with the prevailing conditions and requirements needed by the said mangrove forest. So the cooperation and coordination of relevant agencies needs to be encouraged in order to meet the specific objectives in protecting the particular mangrove ecosystem. So I think the current management is needed to be refined and also incorporating the latest findings and information on the studies of mangrove forests just to keep it updated, because we know that it is an changing environment. So I think the second ways we can improve the sustainability is through the restoration program. So I think government should initiate a restoration program to proclaim the area as protected to avoid the land being used for any development, any illegal deforestation, or any illegal stuff that could maybe threat the mangrove ecosystem. I think the remaining mangrove forests that are being established today needs to be protected. This is so that we can make sure that diversity can be maintained, also not lost in the name of development or other anthropogenic factors, if that makes sense. So I think well, under restoration programs like possible rehabilitations, restorations, and also recreation of mangrove habitats that have been destroyed must be continued. That's my 2 cents on it. So, Yazid, do you have any opinion on that?
Thank you very much. I think I have another two more points to add it on how we can improve the sustainability of the ecosystem of our mangrove. The next one is by education. We all know that in education, we can learn and gain new knowledge that we can practice in our life and so on. Plus, education is very important for younger generation because they are our future. And the goal of education towards in this education is to educate the public in mangrove ecosystem management is to raise awareness, understanding, and new attitudes among adults and children about the importance of these coastal resources and how they should be used. The cooperation between public and private relationships can be established to ensure a functional coordination. Means that it doesn't matter who you are or from where you are. Are you a public sector or you a private sector? We must work together in order to establish our planet because we live in it together. This doesn't mean that this belong to you and this belong to me. We all live in one. And then the next point is to be about mangrove ecotourism. We know that mangrove ecotourism are rich in flora and fauna and they serve as natural permanent greenway along many coastal locations. And we as a marine bio also know that mangrove ecosystem provide a huge benefits in the blue carbon and for habitat for the juvenile marine organism. With mangrove ecotourism, uh, guided tours, scientific study, and thoughtfully constructed public facilities such as boardwalks and interpretive walkway can all give a once-a-lifetime experience to increase tourist offerings along the mainland coast for both locals and visitors. As the result, there is a financial incentive to protect our mangrove, and also public and private sector should work together to play their role in initiating this project. Means that we as a normal civilian, a normal people, we might not have enough resource to do this, but with this public sector or this private organization, they might be able to just make a move on it and to establish one ecotourism, and maybe others could follow them, and this will be a worldwide change, and thus we can save our mangrove ecosystem. And I think that's all my point. Does any of you guys would like to add some more?
Wow, is it? That was very.
Yes, that was a great point. And as as a student, that we should uh took our own ways to sustain the mangrove ecosystem. Because even though it seems a little effort, but if we take part in together, so the we can see the changes in future lah. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much for any more
Did,
from
did
Adik.
anyone cover what we can do as a student? Like, no.
Well, I might not have the point to have the sustainability to do as a student, but in other general term, I mean that anyone could do this is by there's a few of it, which is maintaining the flow of tidal currents to ensure healthy growth of mangrove. This is meant to be by the developer of the coastal development. So they need to have alert on this matter. And the next one is the possible ways to stop eutrophication and soil erosion in mangrove forests. Next one is by nutrient recycling by maintaining mangrove and associated forest species, which mean not to lodge them without uncontrollably. And then the next one is to control of tourism on mangrove forests, which means not to overcrowded that place because we know that our public beaches, when it is too crowded, they cause a lot of harmful things too, such as they dispose matter without being concerned of the environment. They just throw away all the rubbish without in not in the dustbin, so they like literally making trash everywhere. And then discouraging and dredging and quarrying activities to minimize sedimentation and controlling water and plant pollution. And the last one will be to reintroduction and restoration of degraded mangrove forests.
Okay.
I think that's all. The point from our discussion for today. So I think we can close it, right?
Yep.
True.
Okay. Okay then. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Please
Thank
like,
you.
subscribe, and share, and donate to our Patreon.
Please,
Good
please like and
discussion. Good
subscribe to the
discussion.
Group5.
Please,
Oh,
please,
apa tu?
please
Tutup record, tutup record.